Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Julie Klein, and I'm the Leave No Trace Center's Board of Directors Chair. And thank you for being a Leadership Circle member and other key advocates for joining us for our Spring Leadership Circle Insight Series. Today, we're going to talk about citizen science, creating a data set for change. We will start in just a moment, but first, we're going to do a little webinar housekeeping.
Hello, everyone. This is Jenna Ovette. Just so you know, all participants are currently muted, so we don't hear any of your dogs barking or the passing trains. However, if at any point you have a question, you can click on the chat tab in the Zoom menu bar and type in your question in the box that appears. Plus, we have reserved ample time at the end of the session for an exchange of questions and answers. If at any point you're having technical difficulties or cannot hear, please email me at jenna@lnt.org and I can problem solve with you as we continue the webinar. This moderated 30-minute conversation is a part of the Leadership Circle Insight series and will be emailed to you in the coming days.
Great. Let's get started. Again, I'm Julie Klein, and I'm here with Mark Eller, the Leave No Trace Foundation's Director. And he's going to take you through the webinar.
Hey, everybody. Once again, happy that you could all join us today, and we are going to get rolling with the topic of citizen science. So what is citizen science? It's become a widely accepted practice in the scientific community, and it's basically enlisting minimally trained, ordinary people and equipping them to collect information and measurements that scientists can then use to analyze and advance their scientific work. And for our purposes, that's also spilled into the land management realm. Of course, the land management agencies that we work with employ a lot of scientists, and they want to understand the lands that they manage. And so our approach, as you'll hear about today, is to equip both the scientific and the land management community with data that our citizen scientists can help collect. Citizen science has really gained widespread acceptance in the scientific community, and there are now hundreds of platforms that allow people to participate in scientific research. You may have heard of some of them like iNaturalist.org and ThisUniverse.org. Those are big platforms that have facilitated hundreds and even thousands of scientific inquiries through those platforms. So moving on to the next slide, we at Leave No Trace have worked on coming up with a citizen science approach that is a little different than what other groups like the ones I just mentioned have focused on. Our objective, and we've been working on this since 2018, is to strengthen the connection between the people and the land as they help document the impacts of recreation on particular landscapes. So, in keeping with the center's focus on physical impacts caused by recreation, we wanted to set up a citizen science program that focuses on those biophysical impacts and employs our people to study the things that we know best. So an important aspect of what we're doing with citizen science here at the center is that we need it to be customized or customizable to fit a bunch of different settings that Leave No Trace applies to. So for example, a Leave No Trace citizen science project at a beach might focus on recreation impacts to that beach caused by things like fishing and swimming and surfing. But because Leave No Trace is such a broadly applicable set of guidelines, we might also have a project going on at the same time in an alpine setting in the mountains, and we'd be studying effects on a landscape related to things like hiking and rock climbing and camping. So we need to have a very flexible sort of platform for our approach to gathering data in the outdoor world.
Thanks, Mark. The data that Leave No Trace is collecting will be determined in a collaborative fashion after consulting with the land managers, stewardship groups, and other local stakeholders. And whenever possible, we will seek to be additive to existing data collection efforts so we can build on existing data sets rather than try to replace them and add more information to how these resources are managed. Some examples of commonly selected measurement categories for Leave No Trace citizen science may include trail impacts, measure trail width and record comments about condition, evidence of erosion and trampling. Trash counts are opportunities for trash and recycling, meeting the demands of the users. Is signage adequate? Campsite conditions, log geospatial data about the location, size, and features like campfire rings or evidence of excessive firewood collection. And lastly, parking info. Record times and seasons when parking availability may indicate the potential for overcrowding and other resource constraints.
So we have partnered with a third-party provider to give us a platform for our citizen science plans. And the one that we chose is called citsci.org. They're an open source platform, so free for all users, and they have an outstanding record of hosting citizen science projects. You know, you might have remembered just a few minutes ago I mentioned a few others like Zooniverse and iNaturalist. There are some other quite big players in this space, but one big advantage of citsci.org is that they are just up the road from the center. They are based out of Colorado State University. They were originally developed through the Natural Resources Ecology Lab at CSU, and their kind of underlying founding mission was to promote citizen involvement in scientific research. Citsci.org isn't the biggest player in this space, but they do host over 700 projects, and they've combined to record more than 1 million measurements to answer questions about local, regional, or global research that's going on in the environmental space. So what we're trying to do with citsci.org's help is come up with a curriculum that's going to be easily understandable and enlist people in Leave No Trace and really function both as a outreach tool to get people interested in the work that we do and the mission that the center has always had, and also then contribute to that scientific knowledge that we've been talking about. And there's a really great aspect to all of this is that it ties in quite well with youth education efforts and the Leave No Trace for Every Kid major initiative that we've been involved with. And some of the ways that that can really be informed by citizen science work is that it's a natural connection to things like the North American Alliance for Environmental Education and the curriculum guidelines that they have established, and STEM education, STEM and STEAM, which emphasize science, engineering, technology, and math as key areas for youth education initiatives. This citizen science approach is really going to give us some great opportunities to tap into those worlds. People when they're out and youth when they're out involved with our citizen science are going to be recording things like geospatial information, biology is going to be a key component, resource management, and just general understanding of the scientific method. These are all things that we can tap into by establishing this Leave No Trace citizen science program.
Great. So there's considerable support for this initiative, this type of initiative among the center's existing partners and partners that we're in discussion with in the land management realm. The center conducted several successful pilot projects for the Leave No Trace citizen science in 2018, one of which was a pilot project that was hosted by the U.S. Forest Service at Colorado's White River National Forest, where small samples of users, about give or take 20, put a long-term pilot conducted over 3 months in a backcountry setting. So using small groups to to really look at backcountry impacts. A second one was a pilot that occurred with the Bureau of Land Management, Kashiwa-Katui Tent Rocks National Monument in New Mexico. And there are a large number of participants, give or take 100, were in a front country setting looking at resource issues and that application.
Yeah, really glad we have those pilots under our belt now. They definitely demonstrated a few things that we will inform our plans moving forward. Primary among those things is that coordination with the land managers is going to be really key, so that where we're doing citizen science, the data that is being produced, the measurements we're taking are informing what the land manager is actually most interested in finding out about. And so that kind of pre-planning process and getting a citizen science program at a given area set up with a lot of influence from the land manager is something that we're determined to make work. And just nuts and bolts types of things, like the fact that citsci.org does provide an app interface that you can use on a smartphone. But what we learned from the pilots is that expecting people to be able to download that app in the field is not realistic. So we need to have paper and pen data collection, backup methods. We need to do a lot of marketing of this program in advance so that people can download the app where there's a good wireless signal. And then it works great in an offline mode, but that's only going to be feasible if they've already got it on their smartphone, of course. So just working our way through nuts and bolts by virtue of doing those pilot programs last year was quite important.
So in 2019, the center is focusing on the hotspots program to expand the use of citizen science. Because the hotspot sites have well-documented resource impacts as well as highly engaged local partners, these locations are very well suited to expand citizen science efforts. Additionally, traveling trainers associated with Leave No Trace will learn how to initiate citizen science projects at hotspots during their spring training sessions. citsci.org will contribute to the training sessions as well and will also offer ongoing support for citizen science and work at hotspot locations and other areas that the center designates as important.
So one of the things that I'm very excited about with citizen science is that I think it also may be opening doors to some new funding sources for the center. You know, again, my title is Foundations Director and Director of New Business, and I'm quite interested in the ways that citizen science is going to give the center some talking points for funding that I think will be strengthened by the addition of this program. One of the questions we've always wrestled with is how do you measure the impact of Leave No Trace's broad educational efforts to get people interested in protecting natural spaces? How do you measure what effect Leave No Trace is having on particular places? So imagine, you know, we're at one of our hotspot locations and we set up a citizen science program. Let's say that hotspot is the one that we see in this slide right here, Horseshoe Bend, where we know a huge influx of visitors has caused impacts to the landscape. Well, now we can look at the measurement of data over time and start to really get a good indication of what effect Leave No Trace is having in that particular place. And that, I'm hoping, I'm pretty confident is going to open the centers to some funding sources that have been more restricted to place-based things, like we only want to fund environmental work at this state, in this state, or at this location. We haven't been a great candidate in the past because we've been in a place and out of a place. Now we're going to be able to document the effect of Leave No Trace over a longer time span and really tweak that study to make sure that things that we have the biggest effect on are what data we're capturing. So from a funding point of view, this is really opening up some new possibilities for the center. So I'll take you quickly through some of the current funders. This isn't a complete list, but it shows sort of the breadth of support we've been able to attract. AEC Trust is a family trust source. Arc'teryx is a well-known, oops, sorry, that's my alarm. well-known equipment manufacturer, another family foundation, Door Foundation, and then our federal partners, the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management, have both seen the value in this type of work, want to fund it, and are moving us towards our ultimate funding goal, which Julie will tell you about now.
Yeah, this is important work, and it's certainly important work given the history of the organization and where the organization is heading. And Leave No Trace Center is actively raising funds to support further expansion of the citizen science program, as well as other programs that we're working on. The goals include engaging citsci.org to build what we're calling a white label version of this platform that is fully customized to Leave No Trace. And to support that, hiring a staff position dedicated to facilitate this work. It's estimated the total cost is around $150,000, including the dedicated technical support needed. And before I turn it back over to Mark and Jenna, I also wanted to note that this is an incredibly important effort as the organization is entering into its 25th anniversary. This is a great effort to build out this work and other exceptional programs that the center is supporting and engaging the general public and land managers in outdoor ethics, but also building the organization's legacy. So as board chair, I feel like it's appropriate to call that out. I think it's an incredibly critical time and a very exciting time for the organization. So if you would like to learn more about this and work with Mark on trying to help resource the continuation and expansion of this work, you can reach out to Mark Eller at mark@leavenotrace.org, Mark with a K. And we encourage you to think about whether or not you, people you're associated with, foundations you might know of, or other corporations that you might work with might be excited about supporting this work. There's a lot of opportunities here.
Awesome, thanks everyone. At this point, we're gonna open it up to any questions that you have, which if you do have any, you can type that into your chat box. And if you are having any trouble finding that, feel free to email me at jenna@lnt.org. We'll give y'all a second to type out some questions.
All right, so it looks like we have a question right here, and I'll read it to you. This is Julie again. Thanks everyone, and I'm going to ask Mark to respond to this one. Are there privacy issues to consider in this work?
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic. There are definitely things that we want to be wary of, from just getting people registered with our technology platform and capturing their information and respecting people's privacy in that regard. For instance, just because they signed up for citizen science doesn't necessarily mean that they want to receive membership solicitations. So having people opt into the right communications channels. But even bigger picture, the fact that we're measuring the effect of recreational users in particular places and landscapes means that we want to make sure that our citizen science doesn't lead to people spying on, if you will, other recreational users, or trying to sort of be, we have enough trouble already being perceived sometimes as the police, or Leave No Trace is condemning what other people do. So we need to make sure we have a citizen science approach that is more about recording the effects of recreation on landscapes without trying to indict any particular user for their behavior. So we're definitely putting effort and consideration into handling questions around privacy. So Julie has another question coming in from Greg.
Yes. Mark, are there any plans to do this work in the Midwest?
Yes, definitely. The short-term goal is to focus, as we said, on those hotspot locations in 2019. The hotspots are really well suited for us to develop our citizen science capacity and knowledge. But as we grow that program, we want it to be something that people can bring to any public land. It'll fit very well with our Leave No Trace in Every Park kind of overarching initiative. So where there are hotspots in the Midwest, which I don't know off the top of my head for 2019, that'll be the first place, but the goal is quickly to broaden it to every public park and protected area that wants to have such a citizen science program. We will get them equipped to do it.
And here's, I'm actually going to ask you one follow-on to that one, Mark, that came up, which is somebody was interested in trying to do one in an urban park. Is that going to be a good application for citizen science as well?
For sure, yeah, urban park. You know, I mentioned that citizen science is already a pretty big world. BioBlitzes is a term you may have heard of if you follow that world very much. And a BioBlitz is getting lots of people into a concentrated area and getting lots of data recorded. And those are often really fun to do in front country situations. I think Leave No Trace citizen science will be able to adapt a lot of that kind of BioBlitz methodology, and hopefully we'll get large groups of people in certain places where that's applicable, collecting front country type recreation impact information.
Great, excellent. So this is a really good one. How can I do citizen science projects with kids? That's a great thing for the center. Yeah,
it is. And as I mentioned during the presentation, that is definitely something that's been in our plans from the beginning. So one of the things that the youth education team here is working on is creating the learning curriculum to support citizen science. It's one thing to have a citizen science tool and to recommend these fields for collecting data, but it's a different matter to have a curriculum that goes along with this. So this might include some lesson plans for teachers or somebody like a scout leader that would equip that youth educator to integrate our citizen science approach into what they're doing in their classrooms. So yes, we will be working on that, and the youth ed team is going to be developing that curriculum.
Excellent, great. These are really good questions. We have another one here. How do you plan to address permit restrictions when evaluating the Enchantments permit area in Washington, for example?
Yeah, I think that goes back to that point we were making about coordinating each Leave No Trace citizen science project with the land manager. This is something that we're really going to be emphasizing to our participants, is that we don't want Leave No Trace citizen science to be something that is conducted without that close coordination with the land manager. That's been, part of the center's ethos for a long time. And in this case, we want to really emphasize that, let's say a land manager is already collecting a lot of information about firewood collection, is something we mentioned. They may have a whole set of parameters that they're using to measure how much fire collection is being done, firewood collection, and what effect that's having on the landscape. We want to make sure that our citizen science augments that existing data collection protocol, doesn't try to replace it. So, where it comes to permits, where it comes to existing collection of information, we're going to really emphasize coordinating closely with the land manager when Leave No Trace citizen science is being executed.
That's great. So, Mark, what's the general timeline for when aspects will be rolled out to the greater Leave No Trace community?
So I'd look for a good amount of kind of seeding this conversation this year, this summer, based on the summer hotspots. And we're kind of looking at this it's almost like a startup technology company. You have to create awareness about what you're trying to do. You have to show people success stories of what it looks like when it's done right. So I guess the short answer to your question is you will probably see most of the storytelling we do around this year focus on those hotspots projects. But that's meant to inform people, get them excited, so that when we start rolling it out much more broadly in 2020 and beyond, we can refer back to those success stories and equip people to do good citizen science projects wherever they are, not necessarily connected with a hotspot.
Yeah, there's another one that came through too. You know, relative to fundraising, obviously there was some input as well as a question here. You know, a lot of this work so far and some of the projects that are in the pipeline are with federal and state land management agencies and agencies that are, you know, have some financial constraints for any number of reasons. So the question was, you know, there was a pretty specific ask in this webinar for fundraising, and the question was, what will the money be used for, you know, maybe in a little bit more detail beyond the, you know, technical aspects and funding some human resources for it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have all the, like I said, all the expenses that go along with any new program, which includes, you know, staffing it up. Like I mentioned, specific example, the youth ed team developing the curriculum, all that sort of staff time that gets a program off the ground successfully. But as I was also talking about, this gives us more of a place emphasis. So it might be materials to market citizen science to friends of groups, to provide them with tools like data collection forms. You know, the app technology is easy to distribute for free, but our partner, citsci.org, they have costs for hosting servers and images and all that kind of stuff. So we're helping make sure they have the resources they need to keep moving forward and advance our plans. Certainly a lot of hard costs associated with launching this program, and then lots of opportunity to go above and beyond with our fundraising, give back to particular places, help them do good things with the research that's being done at their particular area. So there's a lot of funding needs, certainly, and we're kind of tackling them hopefully in order so that we can continue equipping ourselves for success down the road.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us. If we did not get to your question, or if you come up with a question later, you are welcome to email mark@lnt.org. And so that you know, we will be sending out a recording of this, so you can check up on anything that you might have missed. And thank you again so much for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.